Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
Well, hello, everyone. Here we go. It's that time again. Happy Monday. It's Matt Connarton Unleashed, and we are live from the studios of WMNH 95.3 FM in glorious, and it is glorious, downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. It's a beautiful day here. Also on Comcast 97 if you're in Manchester, streaming at WMNHradio.org, and on the Facebook, on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. And, of course, you can go to my website for mattconnerton.com for all of your live streaming options and social media links and contact info and show archives, etc., etc. Hello to our friends at Raw Talk Online and Tomorrow Radio. Today is Monday, September 20th, 2021. So welcome, everybody. It is wonderful to have you here with me. It is really a nice day. I kind of wish the weather would just stay like this for the next forever. It's really beautiful out. But anyway, I do want to remind you, of course, that we are proudly sponsored by the Hop Knot. Don't go there today. Monday and Tuesday is their weekend, but they are open Wednesday through Sunday. They have delicious gourmet pretzels. They have craft beer. They have wine. They have trivia night every Thursday night, hosted by the great Bill Cini, who, of course, also does trivia Wednesday mornings on the morning show here at WMNH. But Thursday nights, he's at the Hop Knot. And trivia night is a very, very exciting and successful event every week at the Hop Knot. And then Friday night, our friend Grant Lampton performs live at the Hop Knot from 7 to 9 p.m. as he continues his residency there. Lots of rave reviews there. So great food, great service, and such a wonderful family that owns and operates it. And I believe it's this weekend. I'm going to have to double check with Kenny, but I'm 99% sure this weekend is the 2-year anniversary of the Hop Knot on Elm. So congratulations. Happy anniversary. I'm not going to play the happy anniversary music because we save that for Easy G when he does his entertainment report. He will not be doing an entertainment report this week, by the way, because he needs to recover from the terrible argument that happened last week when Easy G was here with John Hopwood versus Tony D. But anyway... also, another quick programming note. This week, Mike Sutterth will not be joining us on Tuesday for his Tweakonomics segment that he comes in and does every Tuesday. He's going to be doing it on Wednesday this week. So in hour number 2, after Dirk Dawn's album review segment, we'll come back and do Tweakonomics with Mike Sutterth. Mike was offered a show. You know, he is a musician after all. I was just talking about, well, I should clarify for anyone who doesn't know, he's Mike Sutterth when he's talking about economics. But when he performs live at the Hop Knot, he transforms into his alter ego, Grant Lampton. So Mike Sutterth will not be here on Tuesday because Grant Lampton will be playing a show on Tuesday. So he asked me if he could come in Wednesday instead, and I said absolutely. So we look forward to that. So that will be on Wednesday this week. If you would like to enter the discussion today, give me a call, 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. You can also text me at 617-917-4476. Tweet me at Matt Connarton or send an email to matt@mattconnerton.com. I do have a new email today. I'll share with you if we get to it. And of course, you can interact and opine in the Facebook live chat, as many of you do, and I appreciate that. But the best thing to do so that we can hear and enjoy your dulcet tones is to give us a call at 603-250-6007. Let's take a moment and say hello to everybody in the Facebook live chat. I see Melanie La Liberty from the great state of Vermont who says, hey, Matt. Hello, Melanie. Wayne Noel joins us in the chat. Wayne from Michigan, representing the Midwest. Wayne says, afternoon all. Mike Pelopita joins us in the chat room. Mike, of course, from another one of our amazing sponsors here at WMNH, Queen City Cabinetry in the historic Sunbeam Mall. Big supporters of all the shows here and of the station, and we appreciate that tremendously. Mike says, good afternoon, everyone. Christian Lacoste is in the chat room and says, hey, hey, hey. Christian, also known as DJ Reckless, just played a big show. DJ'd a big show last night in, was it last night or the night before? I think it was last night. Time lately, it just all runs together for me. There's so much going on, so much to do, so much to see.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hey, now you're a rock star. Anyway. Yeah, there's just a lot going on. So it's all a blur. But anyway, Christian played a very successful show at the I believe it was at the Brick House in Dover. Is that correct, Christian? With hip hop artist Acrobatic. So very exciting. He continues to do big things, and we're very proud of him. Dirk Don joins us in the chat. Dirk, of course, from Arrogant Media, and I can say from Matt Connarton Unleashed, because you do hear him every Wednesday for his album review segment. And I don't know what Dirk has in store for us this week, but I can't wait to find out. Dirk is from Iowa. I just clarify that because, there's a certain individual who, for whatever reason, assumes that everyone I know is also from New Hampshire. It's very strange, but no, Dirk is not from New Hampshire. And he is not a liberal. He is a libertarian. Just for a certain individual who might be confused about that. A certain individual who has been very quiet for the last several days. Very quiet since his last call into this show, in fact, where he was emasculated by Mr. John Hopwood, a certain individual from New York City. And no, I'm not talking about our great friend Ricky Litwinkowicz. I'm talking about a certain other individual from New York City. He's been very quiet. He may have finally given up. I don't know. Stacey Lawton joins us in the chat and says, hey, Matt Connarton and everyone, many blessings. Christian Lacoste, shout out to the 400 people that came and danced Saturday at my show, and then the crew last night at Chapel and Main in Dover, New Hampshire. Okay, so the Dover show was last night. Yes. Absolutely. That is wonderful, Christian. You're definitely on a roll. Great to see. Let's see. Let me give the numbers again, and then we'll get into some stuff. 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. Or text me at 617-917-4476. Paulie C. joins us in the Facebook live chat and says, hello, big fan. Well, we're all big fans of you, Paulie C. And, of course, you can hear every Friday night from 7:30 to 10 p.m. here at WMNH Retro Spectrum Radio with Paulie C. And we had a really great time Friday night. In fact, one of the songs Paul played, it was all these metal covers of songs that were when they were originally recorded, they were not metal. And he opened with, it was a project I was slightly familiar with. The Animal in Me is the name of the band, and they do metal covers of pop songs. And they do a cover of Never Gonna Give You Up. Is that the actual name of it? Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you go, or whatever it is. And I don't mean to rickroll you, I apologize. But that was the first song, and I went back and listened to it a couple of times later. It's really, really good, but a lot of great stuff. We have a lot of fun here on Friday nights on Retro Spectrum Radio with our friend Paulie C. I mentioned, I mentioned this last week, I think, on Friday, but I didn't really explain it in any depth. Oh, Jeff Lorenz is in the chat, also known as Scumpy from the band, formerly of the band Def Con, and I think he's now focusing on his acting career. Scumpy says, "Hi, Matt. Miss you. 2 parts in a movie shoot October 3rd. Flying down to Pittsburgh to see family and go see the Steelers whoop ass on the Bengals." Well, I don't know anything about that last part. I'm not a sports guy. I don't know much about what are those, like hockey teams or something? I'm kidding. I know they're baseball. I'm not an idiot. But anyway, but I'm excited about the, you've got 2 parts in a movie shoot coming up. That's great. Good for you, Scumpy. Working hard and it's paying off. I love to see that. Scumpy's a good dude. You should come and hang out sometime, my friend. Let's see. So, last week there was that epic argument between John Hopwood and Tony D. And I kind of gave an analysis about what I think happened there. But what I didn't tell you, I referred to it recently, but I didn't go into any depth. There was a consequence of that when I uploaded the clip to YouTube. But we'll come back to that. We'll circle back, as Jen Psaki would say. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hey, Matt, it's Scumpy.
Yeah, Scumpy, how are you? I was just talking about you. I just saw you in the Facebook live chat.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's been a while, so I didn't know if you got it or not. But
yeah, how you been?
Yeah, a lot of things going on.
Yeah, what's going on? Fill us in.
Well, a lot of cool things. I got there's a movie shoot coming up October 3rd. I'm doing 2 parts. I'm playing a mob boss and a mercenary leader. It's called Time Travel. And I get some pretty good parts. And
good. You have.
And I'm actually I'm leaving here. I'm flying to Pittsburgh on Thursday, like a family reunion type thing. And my cousin's got us some Steelers game, Steelers tickets.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go watch the Steelers whoop the Bengals. I hope.
Very good. Very good.
I know they didn't do very well against the Raiders, but crap.
Yeah, I don't care about football, but I am curious to know. So this movie that you're shooting, you said you have 2 parts in the same film?
Yeah, because it's time travel, and I play 2 different parts. I have to change like in between like different scenes and stuff.
Yeah.
I do a mob boss, and then I do a mercenary like in the future type leader where everyone's dressed kind of like Mad Max type stuff.
Oh, really?
The future.
Oh, cool.
Mercenaries.
Paulie C is asking in the chat room, who's producing the film? Like which movie studio? Is this a Terry Street production? What is it?
Yeah, it's Narrow Street Films.
Narrow Street
but
Films.
It's KJ Trainer. Terry's not in it, but KJ wrote this book, and well, she's a wicked good author. Anyway, she has all kinds. If you look up KJ Trainer .com, she has so many great books, and she's just brilliant.
Very good. Very good. So that's so you're just going to be there. Do you just go for the day? I mean, are you doing all of your scenes in the same day?
It might take a couple weekends, but
okay. Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
It looks good. I get the script already, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty nice.
So you do a lot of work with Narrow Street Films. It seems like that's really good. Obviously,
well,
they
I
like
haven't
you
for a while because of I haven't been. They wrote a part for me called The Woodsman. I was supposed to do. I grew a big long beard and everything. I mean, almost like crap. It was like ZZ Top type beard.
Yeah.
I was supposed to play a woodsman, and then they put the kibosh on it because they couldn't find the place to shoot it and to build the sets.
Oh.
It was too much money.
Oh, wow.
Because there's no sponsors. It's no nothing.
Right.
And a lot of it gets real expensive.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this thing was it was a Revolutionary War thing.
Yeah.
So you got to find an old place, and then you have to find an old place to build like the old type bar, like the Clint Eastwood type bars with just all wood and to shoot the inside scenes and
yeah.
Then you have to get horses and all kinds of stuff.
Oh.
And, yeah.
Oh wow. Were you gonna have to?
She didn't cut it out all completely. She said probably the next year or two we'll do it. I said, well, next time let me know before I grow that long beard.
Yeah. Well, just think of it this way. Think of it as a COVID beard.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
But she goes, no. She goes, I got something for you anyways. And I talked to Terry, too. Terry's doing okay. He's going through some stuff, but he's got some parts, too, coming up. So
Okay.
everything should be good with the trainers, and the movie scene should be very, very good.
How does that work in Narrow Street Films? Is Terry Trainer, is he partners with other people in it? I need to interview him sometime because I want to learn more about him.
Well, no, they have some sponsors, but they're independent.
Okay.
But yeah, they get some sponsors that invest. I mean, they get the people to I don't know. They get as far as like what was it? The one we shot in the Shooters. It'll choose the bar. Brought in some people, made some
Mm-hmm.
breakable furniture. What you call it? People making the glass bottles where you can whack someone over the head with a bottle.
Oh, what do they call
Make
that?
it look really good.
Breakaway glass, I think they call it. Yeah.
Window, but it's not really glass. They make that candy glass stuff, and
Yeah.
they make it. They get some people that do some real good special effects.
Yeah.
And of course, Rob Buckland, and he's the fight coordinator in all the fight scenes. He worked for Miami Vice back in the '90s. He was the fight coordinator in Miami Vice back in the '90s. So, and he's a wicked martial artist. He's a genius. He's just unbelievable.
Is that film available now online?
Who's that?
You said it's called Shooters?
What, Narrow Street Films?
Yeah, that movie that you were talking about in the bar.
Oh no, yeah, it was that Shooters. That was like the first one I was in. I was basically just like a stunt guy in the fight scenes, and I threw people around. Yeah, that's
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
That's available somewhere online.
Yeah.
Go to Narrow Street Films. You can find it through there.
Okay.
Yeah, you can stream almost. I was in the dinner party, and then there was another sequel to that. I was in that. There's a whole bunch. The last two, of course, that was when you saw that one. That was the short film I was in. I was the mob boss. That was a good one.
Yeah, Jenny and I watched that on Amazon Prime, and yeah, we really liked that. That was cool to see you playing a villain. But I want to see the dinner party. That's out. If I go to the Narrow Street Films,
the movie Chance is the one you really want to see because that's a full-length movie, and that's the one that we shot at Shooters. Like I did the bar fight scenes, but the movie is just real good.
Okay.
Everybody in it is great. I'm just like an extra in there. Basically, I'm just like I'm just a brawler in that one.
Yeah.
But it's pretty funny because I get a couple of lines and it's just funny as hell. But I don't want to give it up.
Yeah. By the way, Paulie C in the chat says, "Congrats, Skin."
Oh, hey, tell Paulie C, man, I love him. I miss him. I miss Peter White. Tell them all. I miss you all guys.
They can hear you.
Jenny.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah,
I really do. I'm just up in Concord, and when I'm working now, today I was in Rhode Island, so
yeah, all over the place. Yeah. Well, listen, I mean,
it's hard to listen to the shows now, and if I do, I sometimes I catch yours in the afternoon, but as soon as I get past Hooksett, I can't catch it anymore. But I get about 15, 20 minutes of it.
Yeah.
And if I do local, every once in a while I get to catch Peter White in the morning.
Yep.
Because I'm doing Manchester, Londonderry, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Every once in a while.
Yeah. Good. Well, if you're ever able to, I know it's tough with your schedule, but we'd love to see you. We'd love to see you in the studio sometime if you have a day off. If you want to come on in.
Oh, I'd love to come down.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Love to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I miss all of you. This was a big part of my life. That WMNH Radio.
That's right.
95.3. Yeah.
That's right. Right.
Matt Connarton and the Peter White The Morning Show. It's all beautiful.
Yes.
Hey, I heard actually the Moose was on.
Yeah, he's
Peter
been
White's,
on.
I heard the repeat, and the Moose was on.
Yeah, the Moose has been on a number of times in the past several months on the morning show. It's really great to hear him on there. You know, he just
No kidding. It goes right back to like the first early days when I was there, because the Moose is the Moose. I mean, you can't replace that guy with anybody. He's a character.
Yeah, and that chemistry with he and Peter, you know, it's still there. It's incredible. Yeah, it's really cool. Really cool to hear him on when he's on. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, Scumpy, thank you so much for the call, my friend. And I'm glad the acting is going well. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, things are going very well.
Good.
You want to play a Kiss song?
Yeah. What do you want to hear?
How about Got to Choose?
Oh, that's a good one. I'll play it at the top of the hour when I go to break. Definitely.
Yeah, I'll try to pull it up. I'm going to go into I'm outside now, but I'm going to go in. If I put my laptop on, I can probably, I can stream you right in.
Yeah, definitely. I forgot that
listen.
I forgot that we have that unofficial tradition. Yes, I will definitely play a Kiss song. I'll play it at the top of the hour, and I will play Got to Choose. That is a personal favorite of mine. You got it.
Yeah, that'd be cool as hell. Yeah, I'll go and I'll put my laptop on. Yeah, I'll listen for it.
All right, sounds good. All right, Scumpy, my friend, thank you so much for the call. It is wonderful to hear from you.
Yeah, wonderful to talk to you, man, and peace out to everybody.
All right, man. You
love
got it.
you all.
All right, we love you, Scumpy. All right, take care,
Rock
my friend.
on.
Rock on. All right, bye-bye. All right, that is our old friend Jeff Scumpy Lorenz. He used to be really a big part of WMNH. He was on the morning show with Peter White at least once a week, I think, for a long time, and then he would come in here, you know, every now and then, and we had a great time. And very talented gentleman, talented musician, talented actor. But he's living up in the White Mountains of Concord, as we say. It's a little bit of an inside joke, but so we don't get to see him as much anymore. But it sounds like things are going really well. That is wonderful. Well, that does open up a line for you, 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. But yeah, I wanted to touch on something that happened because of the argument between John Hopwood and Tony D. Scott Robinson in the chat says that argument ruined the entertainment report. Well, the funny thing about that was, you know, Easy G, he decided to bail at the precise moment that the argument seemed to be wrapping up. DJ Midas is in the chat and says, hey, friends. Hello, Midas. Midas, of course, part of the WMNH family. Late Night Delight every Saturday night, beginning at 12 midnight, all the way to 4 a.m. with a replay on Sunday. I see our friend Rocky Huber is in the chat room as well. Now, so that happened on Thursday, the big fight. And then on Friday, I went into some detail about my theory about why that happened and, you know, what happens sometimes with John Hopwood where, you know, his PTSD gets triggered. We discussed that. And, you know, John called in and you know, because it was sort of, you know, John versus Tony D and myself and everyone else in this particular instance. But, and John is, but you know, the argument was not about vaccines themselves. And there's a reason I'm explaining this, because here's the part that I didn't tell you guys yet, or I mentioned it. I think I did mention it, but, you know, nobody in the room was an anti-vaxxer, including John. John is not an anti-vaxxer. I know there were some people in the chat room who were saying, wait, is John anti-vax? No, absolutely not. John is fully vaccinated. He thinks it's important, and I think he would like to see everyone get vaccinated. However, you know, the crux of the argument really came down to a couple things. One is, you know, the validity of the prudence of having vaccine mandates, and that also connected to the argument about, you know, who's to blame for this pandemic continuing to go on and on and on. And Tony D and I and a lot of other folks who were listening, it turned out, felt about it one way, and John Hopwood felt about it another way. He doesn't want to, or at least he didn't, you know, really want to put the blame. He didn't seem to feel it was fair to put the blame on the unvaccinated. Now, I don't want to rehash that part of it because I already discussed it. You know, that happened on Thursday, and then I discussed it on Friday, and John called in and we discussed it at length. But an interesting consequence that came out of that. So I talk on the show a lot about deplatforming, and I always mention when we talk to Crazy Joe, who, like I said, has been really quiet all of a sudden. Christian says, I was so confused that day. LOL. Yeah, Christian was in studio with us. We talk a lot about deplatforming, about censorship, about political correctness. And, and I'm always talking about how trying to remind people who claim when they are censored in some way, when their content is removed, when they're reprimanded for something, whatever it may be, by these social media platforms, oftentimes people will claim, well, my First Amendment rights are being violated. In fact, I think Trump has a lawsuit about that, right, against Facebook and against Twitter and wherever else he's been kicked off, right, claiming his First Amendment rights have been violated. Now, that is simply not true. These are private companies, and they have every right in the world to decide what goes and what does not go on their platforms, and who is allowed on there and who is not. And I think, to be frank, that these companies are making wise and prudent decisions in instances where they are removing content that spreads lies and misinformation and disinformation about vaccines, about COVID itself, etc. But I think they certainly can. The argument could be made they can be overzealous in that pursuit, because for the first time ever, I have been not deplatformed. I'm still on the YouTube, but I did get slapped, and it's funny too, because this happened after I think it was on Wednesday. Crazy Joe called the show, and he goes, "How's it feel to be suspended from Facebook for being a bully?" And yeah, that was on Wednesday, and that was the day. And I made a clip of that too and put it on YouTube of him interacting with John Hopwood because that was fascinating to me and quite funny. John Hopwood was great. But yeah, he goes, "How's it feel to be suspended from Facebook?" And I said, "I wouldn't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not suspended from Facebook. I'm streaming on Facebook right now. I've never been suspended from Facebook. I don't know what you're talking about." And I still don't. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm on Facebook right now. I've never been suspended. But the irony of that is I did get slapped by YouTube when I put up the clip of John Hopwood and Tony D and their argument, and the aftermath of all of that too. I did include in the clip, because when something like that happens on the show, I like to make a separate clip and post it on YouTube. And then eventually these clips end up, the next time I produce a best of.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
For the weekend airing, because every Saturday from 9 to 11 a.m. here at WMNH, it's the best of Matt Connarton Unleashed. So it kind of has a dual purpose. The clips help promote the show, but also go into the best of. So they help me down the road produce those. YouTube removed the clip and gave me a strike. First time that's ever happened to me. And the reason was medical misinformation. Now, and caller, hang on, we'll get to you. I just want to finish explaining this. Medical misinformation. Now, just to be clear, nobody whose voice you hear in that clip is anti-vax, but YouTube, they dinged me for that. They said there was medical misinformation, and that's a no-no. And then I appealed it, and I immediately lost the appeal. I figured it was probably a bot that flagged the clip, but then maybe an actual human reviews the appeal. Because if you listen to it, There's no anti-vax message anywhere in there. The argument was really over vaccine mandates and who's to blame for this ongoing pandemic and so forth. But YouTube had a problem with it, so I'm not deplatformed. I can't upload anything for 2 weeks, at least to that account. I have other YouTube accounts, but I just thought that was interesting. It finally happened to me. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hey, Matt, you got suspended from radio. How does it feel to be suspended from FM radio?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm actually on FM radio right now, but although I have...
No, listen. I'm listening to you right now. By the way, this is Idiot Joe. I'm listening to you right now, and I just want to say, how does it feel to be suspended? You're obviously suspended. I can hear you. You're suspended right now. I hear you on the radio. You're suspended.
Right. Well, the thing is, Idiot Joe, and I think Crazy Joe gets this mixed up as well. Must be something about guys named Joe. I don't know. But look, I'm on FM radio right now. That's why you can hear me. Not that I've never been suspended. I actually have, but not for a long time. I've been good, but I'm on right now, Idiot Joe.
Well, listen, you might say that, and your followers might believe you. Heaven forbid. But anyway, I just want to let you know that you're suspended from radio, you're suspended from Facebook, and you're suspended from YouTube. Pretty soon you're going to be suspended from life, okay? And you can kiss those ratings that are going through the roof. Goodbye.
Well, that's terrible. I like having my ratings through the roof.
Well, they're not going to be through the roof because you're suspended. How does it feel to be suspended from FM radio, you punk? I got no time for this.
What? Oh, did you hang up? I think Idiot Joe hung up. Wow. Well, you know, as far as I know, I'm still on. Again, I've gotten into some trouble before, but so far so good. Well, maybe someone, if Idiot Joe, if he calls back in the future, will try to explain it to him. He reminds me of Crazy Joe. I think they hang out. They're probably both from Poughkeepsie. Dirk Don of Arrogant Media. By the way, speaking of YouTube, make sure you subscribe to Dirk Don's YouTube channel, Arrogant Media. They make a tremendous amount of wonderful content. Dirk says, I'm not sure how anyone would have had the misconception that John was anti-vaccine. Well, I get why people would, actually. And because I noticed there were people in the chat room while the argument was going on. There were a couple of people in the chat room saying, wait, is John an anti-vaxxer? Because there was so much yelling between him and Tony D. And the whole thing got so messy that I can understand how someone would misunderstand or misconstrue, phonics, Matt, misconstrue what John was saying. So I mean, you know, I know John pretty well, and obviously he's on the show a lot. So, you know, I think most listeners probably realize, of course, he's not anti-vaccine, but I can see where there would be some confusion in that whole mess. Christian says, I got snapped at by John for literally sitting there while he's comparing COVID vaccinations to Martin Luther King Jr. Well, yeah, but again, you know, and we discussed that with John on Friday, the next day, in sort of a post-mortem of the argument. What John was trying to put across, but he wouldn't explain it. I was able to understand what John was doing and what he was saying because I've been around him a lot. You know, obviously we're good friends, but also too, I've done a lot of radio with him, and I used to do a lot of television with him. So I kind of understand him. Like, I'm sort of like the Hopwood whisperer. But, and what he was trying to put across was he was saying that if you're talking about the unvaccinated, it's not all just right-wing conspiracy theorists. It's not all just Trump supporters, et cetera. It's also, you know, a lot of minorities who are certainly not right-wing and certainly not Trumpers, minorities who have their own reasons for being skeptical of a vaccine. For example, Black Americans, when you think about some of the things that we've done, like the Tuskegee experiments, et cetera, if you look at history. And he was making a very valid point to make. To me, that's not countervailing my point and Tony D's point and the point of some others that it's the unvaccinated that continue to drive this pandemic. That was our argument. But what John was bringing up, of course, was perfectly valid. And when he mentioned Martin Luther King, I remember the first time he mentioned Martin Luther King, he said, read the speeches of Martin Luther King and you will have a better understanding of vaccine hesitancy from the point of view of Black Americans who have been lied to, who have been misled, who have been experimented on, literally, by our government. And so that's what he was trying to say, but he wasn't articulating it because he throws out, read the speeches of Martin Luther King, and then he's indignant when everyone doesn't immediately say, oh, okay, I'll do that, and then I'll get it. And Tony was asking him, what does this have to do with Martin Luther King? What does this have to do with Martin Luther King? And John was not answering him. John could have simply explained, but I talked about it Friday about why that happens with John. And by the way, in a moment like that, you have people who are arguing about two different things and they end up just talking past each other, but you see that all the time in politics. You might even see that, in your personal life. If I've seen that. I have mediated. I'm a pretty good mediator. I have mediated arguments between friends and loved ones where I've interjected myself and said, well, wait a minute. Now, what this person isn't saying, what you think they're saying, and this person is not responding with the way you think they're responding. You're having two separate arguments, but you're arguing with each other about two different things that are related, but they're not the same thing. And you actually agree more than you disagree, but you don't realize it because you're so busy talking past each other. So that's, I've seen that happen, and I've interjected myself in situations where I see that happening. But you see it more than anything else in politics. You see it on cable news when you've got two talking heads, a liberal and a conservative, and they're arguing with each other and they're just talking past each other. But if you really pay attention, a lot of times they're not having the same argument, which is a very successful strategy in terms of television, producing television ratings. Some people like that kind of thing. I like that kind of thing. I don't like it on cable news, but I love it when it happens on my show, which I admit. I don't know what that says about me exactly. Probably nothing particularly positive, but I do. I love it when a fight breaks out. I always have. It's real. It's visceral. It's. I think it makes for exciting, compelling content. I coming up listening to Howard Stern, my favorite thing on Howard has always been when there's an argument among the staff or whatever. You don't hear nearly as much of that now because they're all remote now with that show, but I've always loved that kind of stuff. So it made for great radio. But that was the thing, and again, it's consider it the fog of war, when what John Hopwood is actually trying to put across. And again, I'm not saying anything he might be listening, and I'm not talking out of school. Like I said, he acknowledges all of this. His PTSD gets triggered, and this is what happens. But it's the fog of war. Someone's going to misunderstand either in real time in that moment because they haven't been around him and they're not used to him. So of course Tony didn't know what John was talking about because John wasn't explaining it. So you're going to, how can you not misunderstand John when all of that's happening? You know what I mean? Dirk Don in the chat says, Tony D asking, what does Martin Luther King have to do with COVID, was taking John's point out of context and making a straw man. I don't think that was Tony's intention, though, Dirk. I could be wrong. I can see where, because people do that all the time. I mean, that's actually, Dirk, you are bringing up an important point because people do that all the time in political arguments. And again, you look at cable news, you'll see it. When you've got two people disagreeing, one person taking the other person's point out of context and making a straw man. That is a rhetorical strategy, to use a phrase that John uses a lot. That is a rhetorical strategy that is used constantly. However, having said that, I don't believe that was Tony's intention. I think Tony was genuinely baffled by what John was saying because, as I said, John was not articulating it clearly because he was getting so worked up. The moment I said, there was a turn with John. It was the moment that it wasn't even Tony, but Tony bore the brunt of John's anger. The moment that I said, we have all the tools we need to put this pandemic down once and for all, but we won't do it. That's when John all of a sudden turned and got upset, which is funny because, or at least that was my perception, which is funny because John said when we talked about it on Friday that Tony D kind of reminded him of when he was in the Army being yelled at by a drill sergeant, and that's what triggered him, which John apologized for. But I noticed John seemed angry when I made my comment because John was like, why do you say that? And it was like, oh, here it comes. He's getting upset. So, and I'm not sure why that upset him. I mean, I think I'm right about that. And I don't think he even disagrees with me about that necessarily. I mean, I'll say it again. We have all the tools. We have the tools we need to end this pandemic, or at least bring it down to a bare minimum so that we don't have hospital systems in some parts of the country collapsing, so that we don't have people having to pick up dead bodies and shove them in a refrigeration truck because, they're running out of space at the morgue or whatever it is. I mean, we have that within our grasp, but we live in the United States of anti-science. So it's just not going to happen. That's my feeling. But John seemed bothered by that, but he also seemed to be very defensive of the unvaccinated. I'm sorry, not sorry. If you're among the unvaccinated, you're part of the problem. Some people don't want to hear that, but it's how I feel about it. And I know a lot of listeners would agree with me. Some may disagree, and that's fine. Dirk also said, that same night I had my turn with Crazy Joe. That was amazing. Oh, wait, where was that? You did? What? Where was that, Dirk? It couldn't have been on Charles's show because Charles was on. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Dirk is referring to Wednesday, I think. What happened on Wednesday? Yes, that's right. Because Wednesday, Crazy Joe called into this show, and then later he called into the Charles Richardson show. Got it. I'm just getting my days mixed up. Hello to Abigail Gem in the chat room, who says, hi there, folks. Hello, Abigail. As well as Miriam Banish, who says, good afternoon. Hello, Miriam. But anyway, so the point of that is we'll kind of put a button on that and move on. But I got dinged on YouTube. First time ever. I was warned. And I can't upload anything to that particular account for a couple of weeks because of quote-unquote medical misinformation. So, like I said, I assume it was a bot that flagged it, but then I figured, well, when I appeal it, hopefully an actual human reviews it, because if an actual human listens to it and pays attention to what they're hearing. But then again, for all I know, maybe it was an actual human who listened to it, and like I said, in the fog of war, someone might have listened to that and thought, oh, this individual here sounds anti-vax, when in fact he is not. But like I said, I can see where someone would misunderstand. Eric Street is in the chat room. Hello, Eric. Eric says Glendy was fun. Anyone else go? I did not attend. Eric, I was very busy over the weekend. But
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
let me give the number again, and then I want to try to get this email that I got. 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. I received an email from our friend Mike Doyle, and it's been a while since I got an email from Mike, and I want to, there's some interesting things in here. And I want to do, I did this the last time. Oh, hello to Chris Rose in the chat room. Hi, Chris. I did this last time with Mike's email. I read it once all the way through, just straight through, and then I want to read it again and drill down on a few things in it. It's relatively short. If it's a big, long email, I won't do that. But with something relatively short, but has a few things I want to focus on for a minute, I like to approach it this way. And I appreciate, Mike and I disagree politically on many things, but I always appreciate his emails. So this is titled Solution for the $5 trillion package the Democrats are trying to shove down our throats. His characterization, not mine. Again, that's the title of the email. He wrote, hey, Matt, hope all finds you well. I have a solution to get all on board with this ridiculous $5 trillion package the Dems are trying to ram through. With the division in parties on this idea and the amount of pork found in the large package, why don't we say that the $5 trillion will be divided by the 50 states, which would mean every state would receive $100 billion to do what they want for their infrastructure, municipalities, schools, businesses, roads, bridges, etc. This is a clever thought, as the monies would be more targeted to get to the people, schools, roads, etc. that really need it. Why this wouldn't pass is because the pork factor that these politicians count on would be compromised. I cannot see why anyone would vote against that. 100 billion per state. On another note, had dinner with an older couple last week, and the gentleman who is a Democrat told me that this administration is a complete failure so far. The point he made that I never thought of was that congressmen and senators who are in their 70s, 80s, 90s should not be voting on large packages of $5 trillion when they may not be around to pay the dues. Thought it was an interesting thought. Take care, Mike. All right, so that's the email in its entirety. Now, I want to go through it again and just drill down on a few things that I think are interesting. So Mike said, with the division in parties on this idea and the amount of pork I found in this large package, why don't we say... Now, before I go any further, here's the problem when you're talking about pork. Different people are going to have different ideas of what pork is. And specifically with infrastructure, this has been an ongoing discussion. What is infrastructure? Now, we tend to think of infrastructure as roads and bridges and transportation, all the basic stuff that government does, that even a lot of libertarians I know, some of them don't want the government doing anything, but many I know will acknowledge that, yeah, there are some minimal functions that the government needs to do. It's all a matter of perspective in terms of how narrow or how broad your idea of infrastructure is. And where things have changed a bit is now there is sort of this idea, and this is a tough sell, but I've heard some Democrats say, well, we should be, student loan forgiveness. I don't think I've heard a lot of Democrats say this, but I think I've heard a couple. Student loan forgiveness should be part of infrastructure because for whatever reason. The definition gets very broad for some people. Or slightly more narrowly, education becomes a part of infrastructure. I don't necessarily think that's wrong, but I think that if you're going to call it an infrastructure package, I think you need a little bit careful about getting too broad with the idea. Every time the Democrats get more broad in terms of what they're going to call infrastructure, to me, I think I don't think that's a winning strategy politically, because it makes it that much easier for the Republicans to then say, well, look at what they're calling infrastructure. Now everything's infrastructure. Midas in the chat says, Matt, called this a year ago. Magically, all GOP are suddenly budget hawks again. Shocking. Well, that's what always happens. Republicans are always budget hawks when there's a Democrat in the White House. And then when there's a Republican in the White House, they couldn't care less about how much money we spend. Midas says we wouldn't need student loan forgiveness if they charged a reasonable interest rate on those loans. Stephen Philbrook joins us in the chat and says, To Mike Doyle's email, in today's dollars, how much would Eisenhower's roads project cost? Pork is much better than bailing out the savings and loan, maybe? How about corporate welfare? You know, like Amazon paying no taxes, AT&T, Verizon, etc. And I went out to dinner with 6 Republican friends that said this administration is much better than the one that was just replaced. All right, so that's Stefan chiming in. You went out to dinner with 6 Republican friends who all said that? That's amazing. That gives me hope that maybe Trump won't be the nominee in 2024. But no, he will be. Trump will be the Republican nominee in 2024. There's no way he's not running, and there's no way he won't be the nominee. But anyway, so to Mike's point, what is pork? Oftentimes, pork is, you know, if, say you have, because that's how these things work, say you have a senator or a congressman from a particular state or a district in their state, and they're able to have X amount of dollars. Part of the bill is X amount of dollars are going to be spent on whatever a particular project is in their state or in their district, which is advantageous to that politician, because then, as long as that's in the bill and that money is going to get spent on that particular project, then that politician, for their reelection, they get to make campaign ads where they say, look what I did for you. And by the way, some pork, you know, it is going to have some utility in the sense that you might call it pork because it's money that you don't think necessarily meant to be spent, but it might still yet have an economic benefit. You know, if there's pork to, quote unquote, pork that's going to pay for a new building that's going to be put up, well, when you're putting that building up, you know, you have to pay the people to build the building, and, you know, a lot of money is going to get spent that goes into the economy. Now, I'm not saying that that's good or bad. I'm just saying that when you use that word pork, you know, you have to keep in mind, everybody's got their own idea of what pork means. Now, Mike said, so why don't we say that the $5 trillion will be divided by the 50 states, which would mean every state would receive $100 billion to do what they want, fix their infrastructure, municipalities, schools, homelessness, roads, bridges, etc. This is a clever thought, as the monies would be targeted to get to the people, schools, roads, etc. that really need it. That idea I like. I would support that. I am a big believer, and this is an area where I think I tend to be, maybe I think more like a conservative. I'm a big fan of local control, in that if you're going to spend money, chances are the people who are actually on the ground where that money is going to be spent might have a better idea than the federal government about how that money should be spent and what is the most efficient and effective use of those funds and what the biggest problems are, and, you know, how much do we need to spend on fixing our roads versus how much do we need to spend on maybe repairing a school that is falling apart versus how much money do we need to spend on giving people shelter who are homeless, etc. So I like that idea, to be honest, Mike. I think that individual states can probably do a better idea than the federal government in terms of how they spend their money. Like I said, I'm a big fan of local control, and that gets us into something where I'm kind of conservative. Even with education, I would rather that local school districts have as much control as possible. I know the counter argument that people make to that as well, when you leave it to local school districts, some crazy things happen. For example, a number of years ago, I read a story on the air about a school district in Louisiana.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Where they were actually teaching in science class that the Loch Ness Monster, this is true, by the way, this is not from The Onion or some website like that. They were actually teaching in a school in Louisiana. It was in a textbook, quote unquote, that the Loch Ness Monster was actually real and in fact is a leftover dinosaur that survived, and that proves that humans and dinosaurs can coexist, and that proves that evolution is incorrect and the creation story in the Bible is what really happened. Obviously, that is a giant leap in logic on top of another giant leap in logic on top of another giant leap in logic and so on, to get to where you're supposed to get to with all of that. But they were actually teaching that in a public school in Louisiana. This was I don't remember what year, but it was when Bobby Jindal was the governor. And so I understand, some crazy things happen, but I do think generally, broadly speaking, I think local school districts probably, again, are going to be able to figure out how better to spend that money. Maybe there should be some caveats put on it, some rules, but I'm a big fan of local control. I think that's a smarter way to do it. So I actually do like that idea, Mike. Mike went on to say why this wouldn't pass because the pork factor that these politicians count on would be compromised. Oh, I agree with you. You're right about that, Mike. You're absolutely right, I think. Stefan said, again, this is referring to the dinner that he had with his Republican friends. They say they're Republican, but alone in the ballot box, who knows? Yes, I have many Republican friends, and they have been friends for years. We never let politics divide us. Oh, same here. I think I still have a few who even actually speak to me to this day, believe it or not. Tom Blanchard says, I don't think they care what should be a part of infrastructure. So Mike says, I cannot see why anyone would vote against that, the $100 billion per state. $100 billion per state. Well, but you answered that in your previous comment about they wouldn't because of, the pork. Mike also said in this email, on another note, had dinner with an older couple last week, and the gentleman who is a Democrat told me that this administration is a failure so far. Well, to address that, I have no doubt that there are Democrats who feel that way. Joe Biden's polling numbers, he was very consistent right up until the Afghanistan withdrawal. Americans broadly seem to be, in fact, well, actually, specifically on COVID-19 response, on pandemic response, things like rolling out the vaccines and whatnot, very high marks in approval ratings for Biden. I myself have given him very high marks on that. I've given the Biden administration not an A+. Maybe at one point I did. But I'll still give them an A, maybe an A-. This whole thing about the booster shots the message got really muddled. So they lose a little bit of points for that. Should have had a more streamlined message on that because now I think people are confused. But overall, I'd give them at least an A-. And polling data shows Americans generally, obviously more so Democrats and independents than Republicans, but Americans generally, very high marks for that, which had Biden at, around a 60% approval rating in some polls for a long time, which is very high for a president because we're so evenly divided. But the Afghanistan withdrawal really hurt. And last I looked, he still has a higher approval rating now than Trump did at the same point in his administration. But it has taken a hit. And I have no doubt that there are Democrats who are very disappointed and upset with the Biden presidency. Look, I'll be honest with you. If you take out the pandemic, now to me, I put a lot of weight on the pandemic. So I'm not ready to call this presidency a failure because I put a lot of weight on the pandemic. To me, that is the number one issue still. That is the number one issue in my mind. That's existential as far as I'm concerned. The pandemic and responding to the pandemic. So on the number one issue, I give him an A-. So I still feel positive overall. By the way, just to remind you, I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. But if you take the pandemic out of it, I see a lot that I don't like. The Afghanistan withdrawal, in my opinion, a disaster. We've got this new thing. We'll get to it in the second hour, or we'll try to. We're already late for a break. But now we've got this new problem with whoever expects to turn on the news and find out that we've got trouble with France. I don't mean trouble like militarily. There's no, we're not going to go to war with France or anything like that, obviously. It's largely diplomatic, and it's really over what amounts to an economic issue. Apparently, they're mad at us. They're very mad at us. They were called their envoys and everything. They're really pissed. And I believe right now the president's administration is trying to arrange a call between President Biden and President Macron of France to try to kind of smooth things over. So there appears to have been a terrible miscommunication or miscalculation there over this deal with Australia. You've got there's a record number of migrant children now under a bridge in Texas, apparently, and I don't get the sense that the Biden administration really has any direction or any idea of what they're doing to solve that issue, which just keeps getting worse. I kind of bristled at some of the criticism early because this is something every administration deals with, but not on this degree. They've got to figure out how to fix their messaging on that, because Kamala Harris going to Central America and saying, hey, giving a speech about please don't come. It's too dangerous. Stay home. We're going to try to help fix things where you are so you don't have to come. Please don't make this trip. Well, apparently no one was listening. And that means the messaging has to be fixed. So this administration has a lot to work on. Now, I'm not going to call it a failure yet. We're still relatively early in this administration. What are we, 8 months in, 9 months in? So we got a long way to go. I mean, I remember the Clinton administration, which that was the first election that I was old enough to vote in. And the first year of Bill Clinton's administration was not a good time. People were saying that this administration is a complete failure at this point in the Clinton administration. I mean, his approval rating was bad. It was rough. And they turned it around. They turned it around so well, he won a second term. So, it's early. It's very early. So I'm not going to put a final grade on this and call it a failure at all. Again, the number one issue I think they've done well on, and it's very early. But having said that, I understand why some people are very frustrated. There's a lot here that I don't like. Stefan says Afghan withdrawal dates was part of the Doha agreement that the Trump administration negotiated. I understand that, but we already weren't following the agreement that Trump negotiated. We were supposed to be out by May 1st, I think. Also, I would add, presidents usually don't have any problem coming in and ripping up what the previous presidents did, including Biden. And that could have been renegotiated, or we could have just said, hey, we're the United States and we're not going to do what the previous administration agreed to, we're going to do this instead. And we're the United States. We can change this if we want to. And if you don't like it, that's too bad. I mean, we can do that, right? It also, Stefan, regardless of whatever excuses you want to make for the Biden administration, it doesn't change the fact that President Biden went out of his way on more than one occasion to reassure Americans there is no reason to think that this is going to go poorly.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
I would forgive if the president said, if he told all of us, look, we're going to withdraw from Afghanistan. We're going to try to do this. We're going to try to do the best we can. We're going to try to do this in an orderly way. We're going to try to get people out. And by the way, they did get well over 100,000 people, something like 140,000 people out of Afghanistan. We should keep that in mind, and I give credit for that. But he went out of his way to reassure us this will be smooth and orderly. This is not going to look like Vietnam, certainly. And there's no reason to think that this is going to go badly. If he had told us this could go badly, this could get messy, but it has to be done, treat us like adults. Tell us the truth. Don't sugarcoat it. Tell me the truth. That's why we elected him, right? Because we were tired of being lied to every day. Just tell us the truth. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he lied intentionally. President Biden may very well and probably did expect that this was going to go much more smoothly, and it did. But that does not negate the fact that there was a failure here. I don't know if it's his judgment. I don't know if somebody gave him a bad briefing. I know that when Tony Blinken went and testified at that hearing, I was not impressed with what he had to say. But this, blaming it on the Trump administration, it's weak tea, as they say. I mean, yeah, and it's the same standard that I held Trump to when Trump decided to withdraw us from Syria, because I agreed with that, getting out of Syria. I agreed with Biden pulling us out of Afghanistan. Both great ideas. But like I always say, a great idea is only as good as the execution of the idea. You can have a great idea. You can have the best idea anyone has ever had in the history of the world. But if you take your great idea and then execute it in a clumsy, ham-fisted, inept way, like this appears to have been done, just like Trump did, getting us out of Syria, then your great idea doesn't seem so great, does it? So I think this administration deserves all the scorn and the criticism and the analysis that they're getting over this Afghanistan withdrawal. And we have to hold them accountable for it. I'm not, again, to be clear, way too early to just write this administration off, in my opinion. Stephen said, agreed, left in August, not May. There was no way to exit. Same way it didn't work for the Russians in the late 80s when they left Afghanistan. Well, Stephen, then I would say the president should have told us that. The president should have said, this is going to be messy. We're going to rip the Band-Aid off and it's going to hurt, but we have to do this. We have to get it done. But that's not what he told us. That is not what he told us. Dan Lavasser says, as much as I blame Trump, or as much as blame as Trump had for not following through with his promise to withdrawal. I think Dan might be using voice to text. I'm not sure exactly what that sentence meant. I think I kind of have an idea. But let me just clarify something, too, because, if you're a regular listener, I'm no fan of Trump at all. I have great disdain for him. So I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea and think I'm letting the Trump administration off the hook. First of all, why Trump and Pompeo would negotiate with the Taliban without the Afghan government also at the table is baffling to me. So, it's almost like they sabotaged the following administration, which, acknowledging that would seem to go to Stefan's point. But again, why didn't this president tell us what would happen, what could happen, what might happen, what could go wrong? Be honest with us. But clearly, look, honestly, it's not that he lied. There's no way that he lied. He didn't know. I will give him that much benefit of the doubt. He didn't know because somebody screwed up. Someone screwed up, or they told him. Actually, there is some reporting that would suggest that no, Biden was giving all the information, giving all the intelligence and assessments about how this may very well go badly from within the administration, but then he made the wrong choice. I don't think he intentionally lied because that's politically suicidal in a case like this. You don't get to be president of the United States by being so politically inept that you're going to put yourself in a position willfully by lying where it's going to come back to bite you the way that this has bitten the Biden administration. But someone either made a terrible error in judgment or the intelligence assessments were so bad and so inept, something went very wrong here. And I'm sorry, I just don't accept any of the excuses and the rationalizations. I believe in accountability. And look, I voted for the guy, but because I voted for the guy, I want to be the first one, not the last, to stand up and say, they got this wrong. They got this really wrong. I have no doubt that when President Biden told us, whether it was his own poor judgment or he was given a bad briefing or 2 or 10 or 100, whatever it was, I think when he told us what he told us, he thought he was telling us the truth. Because if he was lying and thought he was going to get away with it with the images of what ended up happening, I mean, that's just crazy. But he did tell us it was going to be fine. He told us this was going to be fine. And it ain't fine. And they're still trying to get people out. Dan Levasseur said Trump said that he would withdraw from Afghanistan, promised, didn't happen. Well, yeah, I mean, of course, it's Trump. Why anyone, I mean, I know if you put on a red hat with MAGA on it, you believe what he tells you, but otherwise, why would anyone else believe anything he has to say? Tom Blanchard says we should have started loading our equipment on ships and save a huge amount of money. Yeah, probably. Stefan says, first of all, we shouldn't have been there in the first place. Stefan, I agree. I just don't accept this idea that a lot of people go to that. People go to that all the time. Well, first of all, we shouldn't have been there in the first place. Yeah, no kidding. But, there's a lot of things, maybe we shouldn't have done, but you've got to deal with the circumstances that you're presented with in the present day. Not, you can't, it's not like you can go back and, it's like Colin Powell tried to warn a W when he went into Afghanistan. You break it, you buy it, Stephen says, second of all, if it were to take down the Taliban for harboring bin Laden, then after we had bin Laden, we should have withdrawn. So Obama is at fault as well. Wars make money. Oh, I agree with you there, Stefan. I agree with you on that part. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, Obama, what Obama did was, and Obama, he told us, he campaigned on that, I'm going to get us out of Afghanistan. And instead, there were surges and there were increased drone strikes exponentially. And I believe those drone strikes have the effect of what we call blowback, which is where You take where you have these enemies and you're killing them with drones and you're taking out, say, a wedding party to get to one terrorist who maybe is the best man of whoever's getting married, and you wipe out an entire family in a drone strike. Now you've just created even more enemies, and it's a perpetuating thing. But I agree, we never should have gone in. And yes, Obama is at fault as well. Absolutely. And yes, wars do make money. It's our greatest export. Absolutely. And yes, I basically agree with us leaving. I just think it should have been done better. Or if there was no way to do it better, we should have been told what to expect. And by the way, we're way late for break, but I want to make this one last point, and then we will go to break. I know Scumpy's waiting for his song. This part of what bothers me here too is, as it relates to COVID, because COVID to me is still the number one issue above all else that I'm concerned with, this terrible pandemic. And you might be thinking, well, Matt, what does that have to do with Afghanistan? Well, I'll tell you what it has to do with Afghanistan. The reason that we're still stuck to a large extent in this terrible pandemic is because of people not taking COVID-19 seriously, right? We have a large swath of the American population, millions of people. That's why I now often refer to the United States as the United States of anti-science. So you've got millions of people who vote, who refuse to take the pandemic seriously. Maybe they think it's no big deal, or they think it's all fake. They think the vaccines are to inject you with a tracking system so Bill Gates knows where you are and can send George Soros to your home to kidnap you, or, whatever crazy things, all these right-wing conspiracy theorists, all these crazy things they come up with, and you have these Republican governors who don't like face masks and don't want to tell anyone to get vaccinated because freedom and liberty are more important, and don't care that the hospital system in like Mississippi, for example, is collapsing. All of this. You have all of these people. You have millions of Americans who, I don't know, maybe they think the near 700,000 dead are crisis actors, whatever it is, that COVID deniers and anti-vaxxers and anti-maxxers, whatever crazy, stupid things these people think, right? Now, a huge part of why I supported President Biden was I felt it was important to have a president, to have leadership in the White House who take the pandemic seriously. And that was the central message, right, from Biden during the campaign. We need to take the pandemic seriously, versus the message of Trump, which was we need to take the pandemic seriously, unless, of course, you don't feel like taking it seriously, in which case, don't worry about it, whatever, who cares, right? Here's the problem. In order for President Biden to convince people to take the pandemic seriously, he has to have the maximum amount of credibility. Look, there are millions and millions and millions in this country of people who are never going to believe anything anyone who is not of the same ideology as them, who is never going to believe anything that they tell them. There are Republicans out there who are never going to take the pandemic seriously, some of them for no other reason than Democrats do take it seriously, so they have to be the opposite of whatever Democrats think, right? That's how politicized this thing is. But then there are the people, look, elections are won and lost based on who independents vote for, generally. Generally, Republicans will vote for the Republican candidate. Democrats will vote for the Democratic candidate. So then you've got the independents. That's where elections are won and lost. In order for those independents to take COVID seriously, to, I'm talking about people who are fence sitters, people who kind of take COVID seriously, but maybe not as seriously as they should. They need to be convinced in one direction or the other. If we're going to convince them to take COVID seriously, we need the number one individual in the entire country who's in charge of the whole thing, President Joe Biden. We need him to be able to convince these people to continue to take it seriously, to do what he says, to get vaccinated, to wear a mask, et cetera, et cetera. We need that guy in order to reach as many people as possible to have the maximum amount of credibility possible. We need him to be credible among the independents, people who maybe could have gone either way for Biden or Trump, people who may have voted for, some of them who may have voted for Trump, but they could be convinced by President Biden. If they feel he is credible, they could be convinced by him to actually take COVID seriously, to actually get vaccinated, to actually wear a face mask. They could be. They could be convinced by him if they believe in him, if they believe he is honest, if they believe he is credible, if they believe he knows what the hell he's doing.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
So this is how Afghanistan relates to COVID. It relates because when the Biden administration goes and blows it that badly, as I feel that they did with the Afghanistan withdrawal, when they go and do something that is so self-damaging to their credibility, that has an effect with the pandemic, because now you're going to have people who maybe could have been convinced by a credible, trustworthy leader who seems like he knows what the hell he's talking about. Maybe they could have eventually been convinced by him to go and get their vaccine, but now they're looking at that guy and going, I don't think he knows what he's doing. And if he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to the withdrawing from Afghanistan, maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about with this pandemic. Maybe my dumb right-wing conspiracy theorist friends, maybe they're right. Maybe it is all fake. Maybe it is a plandemic or whatever crazy stuff. Maybe they do, because I don't believe the guy in the White House has the credibility to tell me what I should be doing, that I should get vaccinated, that I should wear a face mask. Every time they do something that damages their own credibility, it directly inhibits their ability to continue to handle the pandemic in what I feel overall has been a very good way. It's the one thing I think they've consistently gotten right. Again, this whole thing about the booster shots, the messaging got muddled. But overall, I think the Biden administration has done a good job on the pandemic. It's the one thing I give them very high marks. But I'm telling you, every time they screw something else up, it damages their credibility on everything. Because look, most people don't think of it as, okay, I agree with this person, this president, this senator, this congressman, whatever. Okay, I agree with them on some things, but I disagree with them on others. I think they're a mixed bag. I think this person has done a good job in some areas, but a poor job in others. I give them a mixed review. Most people don't think that way. They don't. I like to think some of my fellow independents do. Republicans and Democrats sure don't. No, most people think of it as, I either love everything about this person, probably because I voted for them, and, so I totally love this person and support everything that they do, or I think this person is Satan incarnate and is the worst possible president we could ever have. That is how most people think. Most people are not going to say, well, I think he's doing a good job on pandemic response, but a poor job on this, and actually an okay job on this, but a not so okay job on this. It doesn't work that way for most people. So every time they screw something up, it affects the pandemic response because it damages the president's credibility. And I don't want his credibility damaged any further than it's already been. I want him to succeed at the highest possible level because I want Americans to take him seriously when he says we need to get vaccinated to end this pandemic. And every time they screw something up, his ability to put that message out there and have people actually go along with it is diminished. And that is how Afghanistan relates to the COVID pandemic. Tom in the chat says, yep, I know people like that. There's people who can't stand Biden and won't listen to a word he says. Right. And those are people you can't reach. But then there's people in the middle who could go either way, you know? There might be somebody, somebody sitting in a red state like Alabama or Mississippi thinking, I don't know, maybe I should get vaccinated. Yeah, I mean, President Biden, maybe he's right. Maybe I should get vaccinated. He seems pretty sure that I should. Yeah, maybe I will. I won't tell my Republican friends, but maybe I will. And then they turn on the news and they see Afghanistan and they go, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Never mind. I'm not going to go get vaccinated. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. That's part of why I am so frustrated.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
With how this has gone. We are way late for a break. Dirk Don says, I'm going to get unvaccinated. All right, well. I wonder if you can get unside effects. All right, let's, we're really late. Let's take a quick break. Scumpy called earlier. He suggested, Scumpy loves Kiss. I love Kiss. They're my favorite band. He suggested from the Hotter Than Hell album, Got to Choose, and I think that is a wonderful choice. So we'll take a very short break. We're going to play a song, show some love to our sponsors, and then we'll come back. More Unleashed coming up. Don't go away. Welcome back, everybody. We are way in hour number 2, numero dos of Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're actually already almost out of show. I went a little long. We are live, of course, from the studios of WMNH 95.3 FM in glorious downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Also on Comcast 97 if you're in Manchester. Streaming at WMNHradio.org and on the Facebook on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. And of course, you can go to my website, mattconnerton.com, for all of your live streaming options, social media links, contact info, show archives, etc., etc. Hello to our friends at Raw Talk Online and Tomorrow Radio. Today is today is Monday, September 20th, 2021. I told you, it's all It's all blurring together for me. I've been doing a lot of stuff. I've been a busy guy, and it's been a busy day. Oh boy. I'll tell you what, I got so worked up in that first hour. Now it's time to cool down. Maybe no, I'm not going to do the smooth jazz. Not going to do it. I'm tempted. If you'd like to give me a call, you can at 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. You can also text me at 617-917-4476, tweet me at Matt Connarton, or send an email to matt@mattconnerton.com. And, of course, you can always interact and opine in the Facebook live chat. But the best thing to do so that we can hear and enjoy your dulcet tones is give us a call at 603-250-6007. And I do want to remind you that we are proudly sponsored by the Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan at 1000 Elm Street, right across the street. They have delicious gourmet pretzels. They have craft beer. Every Thursday night, they have trivia night with the great Bill Cini. And Friday nights, our friend Grant Lampton performs live at the Hop Knot. Which reminds me, a quick programming note. Tomorrow, our friend Mike Sutterth will not be here for his Tweakonomics segment, but he's going to visit us in the second hour on Wednesday instead this week. He was offered a show, a really good opportunity for tomorrow night. So he's going to do that, and he will be here on Wednesday. And we have a call. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hi, Matt. It's Paulie C.
Paulie C of Retro Spectrum Radio with Paulie C. How are you?
I'm doing just well. How are you?
Good. Little hard to hear you, though. You're kind of, you sound...
Is that better?
That is better, yes.
Okay. Sorry, I was under the hairdryer.
Oh, good. Well, we want you to look nice.
Right. Hey, listen, I'm not quite sure what you're in. I hope you're not in the middle of anything that I'm interrupting.
No, your timing is perfect, actually.
Okay, but yeah, I'm driving through the.
Oh, I'm losing you. I lost you. Still there? Can't hear him. Paul, if you're still listening, give us a call back. Yes, I could tell that you were driving. It sounded like you were driving through an area with very poor cell service. So feel free to give us a call back. But that does open up a line, 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. By the way, some big news. COVID has announced that the vaccine... Pfizer has announced, rather, the COVID vaccine for kids age 5 to 11 is safe and effective. That news breaking today. The first results from the highly anticipated trial studying the effectiveness and safety of the Pfizer and BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for children 5 to 11 showed promising results. The pharmaceutical companies said early results of their trial indicate the vaccine is safe for children and establishes a strong antibody response against the virus, giving a 2-dose regimen of 10 micrograms administered 21 days apart for children between 5 and 11 years old was well tolerated, according to Pfizer and BioNTech. Side effects were also generally comparable to those of people between the ages of 16 and 25 who received the vaccine. The trial used a smaller vaccine dosage. And we have a call. This is probably Paul calling us back. Paul, is that you?
Hi, is Matt there, please?
Yes, speaking.
Hi, Matt. It's Paulie C. Sorry about that. I'm driving. What I was saying is I'm driving through the beautiful autumn landscapes of Candia, New Hampshire. So that's when I lost you. So there you go.
Probably because you're in Candia.
That's probably it.
Yes.
Yes. It's a beautiful town, but, let's get with it with the cell phones.
Yes, please.
Right. Listen, I have a question for you, Matt. I'm calling in because I just want to talk about our show on Friday nights for a moment, if I could.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course.
All right. Well, I'm kind of stumped, and maybe you can help me, and maybe your audience can help us. I don't know. It's going to be one of two things, okay? And and I'll be listening till the end of your show. So however many more votes we get for, so the two choices are another night of metal covers.
Yeah.
Or the other option is geographical songs that are about places on the planet. Everything from Georgia to Africa.
Oh, I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. I think that would be fun.
You think we should do that?
I think so. You don't want to do metal covers 2 weeks in a row, do you? Or maybe you do. I don't know.
I when I was building last week's show, those metal covers, I got twice as many that I needed. So it's because they're so awesome, too. So if we don't do it Friday night, we'll just do it another night. That's all.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. So metal covers versus geographical songs. I'll listen in and hear if anybody else says the same thing, and we'll do that then.
All right. Sounds good. We'll see what happens.
Hey, Matt, I got to tell you, you've got a great radio show.
Well, thank you, Paulie C. So do you.
You know, you sit there for 2 hours by yourself, and you're nonstop. But when you come on my show, you clam up.
Yes. Well, we should. Why don't we discuss politics on your show? I'll have a lot to say.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'd rather you clam up. Thank you.
I understand.
No. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding with you, man. I loved having you there. Of course, you're like my Fred Norris. You've been there since day one.
That is true. I have been there since the beginning. You're right.
Yes, we've gone through several other co-hosts. Dan being the longest, I think, at this point. But yeah, it's been you and me since the beginning, babe.
Yeah, you're right.
All right. Have a good night.
All right, Paul. See ya. All right, that was Paulie C from Retro Spectrum Radio with Paulie C, which you can hear every Friday night from 7:30 to 10 p.m. right here on WMNH 95.3 FM. Jenny has entered the chat room. Hello, Jenny. Let's see. Yeah, so that was some big news today. I mean, it wasn't a surprise that that they found that from what I understand. I mean, there was no reason. It would have been much more of a surprise if it had turned out that the vaccine was not safe for kids. But they did, again, this is from NPR.org. The trial used a smaller vaccine dosage, 10 micrograms, rather than the 30 microgram dose used for people 12 and older. The dosage was selected as the preferred dose for safety and effectiveness in young children. News of the results come as pediatric cases of COVID-19 are increasing amid a nationwide surge of infections. By the way, there's the article goes on, there's some numbers and math, but
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Let me just say, too, I know some people kind of have this idea that you don't have to worry about it as much with kids because kids are less likely to die, because they're kids. They have immune systems that are young and shiny and new. And so there's far less concern about kids getting COVID. Now, there's a very obvious flaw in that logic, and then there's a slightly less obvious that I haven't really heard anyone mention much that I want to bring up. But the obvious flaw, of course, is that, even if kids get COVID and they're perfectly fine, number one, they're not all fine. Pediatric wings in hospitals are filling up. In parts of the country, they are full. They are full of kids who have COVID and who are not fine. And of course, also kids who have COVID can pass the virus to other people, to adults who will not necessarily be fine. So that's the obvious problem, or really two obvious problems. Not all kids are fine, and the hospital system is feeling the strain of all the kids who are not fine. And there have been children who have died from it. But also, too, they can pass it to adults. But the thing that the less obvious thing that I don't hear people mention nearly enough is there is such a thing as long COVID, which is sort of the shorthand for long haul COVID. You know, many people, and I don't know, I don't think we have exact statistics on this because it's a little tricky to track it, but millions of people don't fully recover in that they get COVID and they get better, but then they have long haul symptoms or long haul permanent damage. I might be one of those people, as a matter of fact, because if you're a longtime listener, you know this. Well, I've never been diagnosed as having had COVID. On Christmas night of 2019, I ended up in the emergency room with difficulty breathing. Now, at that point, we didn't know about COVID yet. We didn't know that it was here in the United States. Looking back, we now know it may have been as early as September or October of 2019 that it was in the United States already. So I may have had COVID because I ended up in the emergency room that night. I was immediately diagnosed with asthma. Little unusual for someone my age. You know, usually that's something you find out when you're a kid, that you have asthma, not when you're in your 40s and you've never had asthma before, and now all of a sudden you have asthma. So not unheard of, according to my doctor, but a little unusual. So, but I was diagnosed immediately. You know, I collapsed on the front lawn of CMC Hospital, and someone saw me there and brought me into the emergency room, and I was immediately diagnosed as I was clearly having an asthma attack. No history of asthma. So it's entirely possible, and maybe not, we'll never know. It's entirely possible, though, that it was actually COVID. And now, to this day, I have to use a maintenance inhaler every morning. And believe me, if I forget, I feel it. I feel it later. That's the only time I ever have to use my rescue inhaler is if I forget to use my maintenance inhaler, which doesn't happen much anymore, but it happens. So it's very possible that I had COVID and the COVID did permanent damage to my lungs, and that's why I now have asthma and have to use a maintenance inhaler every day. But where this relates to kids is, you know, it's some people take a very cavalier attitude about, oh, well, who cares if children gets it? Usually they're fine. Well, you might think usually they're fine, but what about children who get it and then have long COVID, and you might not even realize they have long COVID? Here's what I mean. One of the things COVID can do to you is damage your brain. Yeah, it can damage your brain. So someone could be a child. You might have a 5-year-old kid who gets COVID, and you think, oh, whatever, they're 5 years old. Who cares if they're sick? They'll recover and be fine. Well, what if they're not and you just don't know? What if COVID damages their brain function in some way? And now they have permanent damage, and you don't know it because they're only 5 years old. They're still developing. But now they have some permanent damage, or maybe now they have asthma. Well, and you might think, well, yeah, of course, you know, they're a kid. That's when you find out most people have asthma is when they're kids, right? But here's the thing. What if the only reason they have asthma now is because they have COVID? What if they had avoided having COVID, what if they could have also avoided ever having asthma? And the asthma was caused by the COVID doing permanent damage to their lungs. So people who are very cavalier, because I see a lot of it, people are like, oh, who cares if kids get it? You don't need masks in schools. Who cares if our schools are a petri dish and they're just passing around COVID? No, it could be affecting children in much more serious ways. And by the way, yes, some of them do end up in the hospital. Why do you think all of a sudden I can't say the word, pediatric wings at hospitals, why do you think they're filling up? Because kids are getting COVID and they're getting so sick, they have to go to the hospital. So I hope, from what I was reading earlier about this means, because the FDA, hopefully by the end of October, will approve the emergency use authorization, or maybe a full authorization for giving the Pfizer vaccine to kids 5 to 11. From what I read, that opens up about 28 million kids, which means 28 million more Americans will now be eligible to be vaccinated. So that could put a real dent in this pandemic, and we could use some progress here because we keep backsliding in a really terrible way on getting through this. Now, of that 28 million, you got to figure, well, half of them are probably in families that are anti-vaxxers or just don't take the pandemic seriously. So realistically, probably only 14 million more people will be actually getting vaccinated. But still, I'd rather have 14 million kids getting vaccinated than no kids getting vaccinated. So, you know, that's good. It's progress. It's still very frustrating to me that more adults won't get vaccinated because the priority above all else, whether we talk about getting kids vaccinated, whether we're talking about getting these third shots, these boosters, the number one priority is getting everybody to get their first and their second dose, everyone who's already been eligible. And we've definitely stalled on that. I think we've pretty much, for the most part, gotten everyone vaccinated who's going to get vaccinated, who is 12 and up. I think we've probably run out the string there, unfortunately. Which means that, you know, over time, I mean, this pandemic will, you know, it's like I said, and that was what started getting John Hopwood upset the other day. But I said, we have all the tools we need to put this pandemic down once and for all, but we can't do it. And the only reason we can't do it is because we won't do it. But, you know, and that means that this will ultimately, I think, it'll go from pandemic to endemic, where we're just going to be stuck with it for the rest of our lives. And all we're going to be able to do is manage it. Or the other thing that could happen, not to alarm anyone, but as these new variants keep coming along, we may eventually get a variant that is resistant to vaccines entirely. And then we're back at square one. And you think I'm angry at the anti-vaxxers now. Wait till you see how angry I am when we're back at square one and me being vaccinated doesn't make a damn bit of difference as far as staying out of the hospital and ending up on a ventilator. I'm going to be really angry then. We got time for one more call. We'll grab this. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hi, Matt. It's Ron, and I didn't realize what time it is. I know you're getting ready to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So this is a fast question. Matt, if getting vaccinated only protects you from not dying, how does it help to eradicate the virus any other way?
Well, because it also reduces transmissibility.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you can certainly, they're finding you can certainly still transmit the virus if you're vaccinated and you're carrying the virus, but the chances of that drop dramatically. It's really just math, and I'm not good at math, so I might not explain it very well. But the odds of that drop dramatically. If you're a vaccinated person and you're around other people who are vaccinated, you're a lot less likely to be passing the virus around amongst each other. And what happens long term in theory is the more people who are vaccinated, the less transmissible the virus is because it has fewer places to go. And so it begins to die out. Whereas as long as the virus can continue to spread, because we have so many unvaccinated people that it's able to spread very easily, that's why we get these variants, and we may eventually end up with a variant that is resistant to even the vaccines. So if we could get everybody vaccinated, you're not going to reduce COVID to zero, but you'll reduce it so much that it'll be close to zero.
Okay. And today's not the day because you're running out of time. But I suppose I could YouTube it and find out myself. I'd like to know how some of the other countries, Italy and whatever, all these other places that were really in big trouble, if they're getting any better at it, you know, their efforts in trying to get rid of it.
That's a good question, Ron. And I'm not sure. Yeah, Italy is one of the countries that had a very, very hard time with it. I suspect, I mean, I've been so hyper-focused on what's going on in the United States. I'm not really sure. But I don't think that I'd be very surprised if some of these European countries, for example, are having as hard a time as we are, because I would be very surprised if there is another modern industrialized country that is as anti-science as the United States is. So I would assume that at least in the long term, these European countries will do better, because I don't think they, unless they're also heavily populated by right-wing conspiracy theorists, I don't think those countries will fare as poorly.
Okay, one last final thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you have Comcast at home?
No, we cut the cord.
Because I was watching Comcast, and they have a program called Breaking the Band, and all different bands from conception to their split-ups. And I happened to be watching it yesterday, and I was thinking of you. It was Kiss. And it was all, stuff from way back when till right up to the end.
Oh, very cool. Good. Well, it's not the end yet. The band is still going. They're on their end of the road tour.
Well, the ends, the split-ups, the money quarrels, the whole 9 yards.
Oh yeah. They have a very long 50 years they've been around. They've got a long and pretty interesting history.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Real fast, I noticed that I guess it was Peter Criss. The two of them, Peter Criss and another guy had Ace, I guess it was, had drug problems. And Peter Criss, he went from multi-millionaire living in he said in a 22-room house to broke and living in an apartment.
Oh yeah. He's.
How do you figure that, huh?
I know it's incredible. But Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, they're the smart guys in the band. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
They're the smart guys.
All right, sir. I'll let you wrap it up. I know you got your things to do.
All right, Ron. I appreciate the call very much. Thank you, my friend.
Nice talking to you.
All right,
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, always nice to hear from our buddy Ron. And we got to go. We are out of time. Thank you all so much. If you missed any part of today's show, it will be up in just a little bit at WMNHradio.org and on the Facebook, on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. And that'll do it for us for now. I'm going to leave you with, because I referenced it earlier, this Animal and Me cover of Never Gonna Give You Up that Paul featured on his show Friday night that I really like this. And that's it. I'll talk to y'all a little bit later. Bye, everybody.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No